Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure, is sponsored by us. What? We sponsor ourselves? Is that even legal? Check us out on Amazon. You can have access to the titles of Pedagogue, the youth ministry book by Lonnie Jones, Cognitive Spiritual Development, a Christ-centered approach to spiritual self-esteem, Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space, a small essay using the principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to talk about psychological and emotional self-defense, If I Were a Mouse, a children's book written and illustrated by Lonnie Jones, and then The Selfish Rill, a very short story about a decision. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel to see archived lessons and presentations from across the country, some videos with rope tricks and knots. Don't forget to visit the Facebook page 550 Guys to learn about the little rope men that we make and that we invented and that we make. And then be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. This is Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Faulkner University announces a 60% tuition discount for members of the Church of Christ. Now, there are some guidelines. This 60% tuition reduction is applicable to adult undergraduate Bible degrees or graduate Bible degrees from the Curley Graduate School of Theology in the VP Black College of Biblical Studies. You must satisfy all admission requirements and maintain satisfactory academic progress. You must remain continuously enrolled, including summers, until the completion of the degree. You must provide a letter from an elder or minister, preferably on church letterhead, verifying that you're an active member of a Church of Christ congregation prior to your initial enrollment. This offer applies to adult undergraduate degrees such as biblical studies, youth and family ministry tracks, and it also includes graduate degrees. And those are the Master of Arts in Biblical Studies, the Master of Arts in Family Life Ministry, or a Master of Theology, and it also applies to the PhD in Biblical Studies. For undergraduate inquiries, please contact Adult Enrollment, 334-386-7140, 334-386-7140, or Adult Enrollment at Faulkner.edu. That is Adult Enrollment at Faulkner.edu. For graduate inquiries, please call 334-386-7539, 334-386-7539. Graduate enrollment at Faulkner.edu. That is graduate enrollment at Faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I was doing a cardio workout. I don't call myself a runner anymore, but I do what I call 3-mile workouts. I have an app on my phone that dictates what I do. It might be a series of run-walk intervals. It might be a sustained 30-minute jog. It's just whatever the phone comes up with. It's part of like being married to my phone. It just tells me what to do, and I do it. I can complain. I can make excuses. I can even assert, you are not the boss of me, but in the end, I will do what it says. So I was at Berry Hill Park in Searcy, Arkansas,
and out doing one of my intervals. I was out doing a run walk thing on a beautiful pre-spring day. And I call my working out, I call it paying the rent. There's a sign in one of the gyms that I use, and it says, rent is due, pay him. My understanding is that the phrase was popularized by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He started using the phrase rent's due to motivate himself after being evicted and struggling financially, emphasizing that fitness is something you have to work for and you have to maintain, just like paying rent. Before I knew the origin of the sign, I always just assumed that we have these bodies and we have these bodies on lease, and as part of the leasing agreement, we pay health dues in fitness, nutrition, and stewardship. So here I am out on this running trail, and I was paying the rent. As I plodded along beside the little creek that ambled through the undeveloped land in Searcy, Arkansas, I noticed the worms on the little paved trail that I was following. The recent rain had probably caused them to emerge from the ground, and some of them had been washed onto the trail, and others were probably just migrating across the track in their own wormy way. Now, this was not Worm Awareness Month. I blame my wife for this. My wife has this habit of rescuing worms. She would not pick up a worm and put one on a hook in order to catch fish. But let her find one stranded in the driveway, let her find one stranded on the sidewalk, and she must stop and rescue this worm. She has this habit of stopping whatever she's doing to pick up the worm and place it into the grass. So here I plodded along, not at a snail's pace, but at a worm observable pace. And I see the little travelers dealing with the arduous task of worming their way through life. And then I saw him or her, or maybe it. I believe worms are hermaphroditic. Anyway, it lay on the pavement, and it lay on the pavement one body length from the grass or soil edge of the path. And it was dead. Dead, dried worm jerky. One worm length away from safety. One worm length away from soil, moisture, nutrition, and life. And yet here was Jerky the worm lying dried and stiff on the running trail. I have to admit, I'm superimposing direction of travel on the unfortunate creature. It was too dried for me to identify the clitellum. That's that little band in the middle of a worm, closer to the head than the tail, so you can tell where the head is. So I can't tell you with confidence which end was the head and which end was the tail, but it was there. And in either case, you've got two scenarios. It either quit at the beginning of the journey or just before he finished the journey. In either case, Wormy died on the trail because it stopped on the trail. Now, I don't know why it stopped. From where I was, the edge of the trail was right there. One worm away from it. But I wonder how far away it was to the worm. If you stand up and you look at your door or your fridge or whatever in your room, you might say it doesn't look very far away. But lie down on the floor and put your ear to the ground, close the top eye, and use the eye on the same side of the ear that's touching the ground, and look across the floor and get a worm's eye view. Get a view from the earthworm side of things, and they look much further away. Your fridge, your door, your couch. It's easy to believe that the world is flat and endless from that kind of viewpoint. Since worms don't actually have eyes, it's not really a thing where we can talk about what the worm saw. Not a worm's eye view, but the worm's eye viewed is what we're going to talk about. You see, the worm I was looking at, the worm doesn't really have a worldview in as much as they are blind. And so this is not what the worm saw, but we're merely an observation of the worm that I saw. They can sense light, and they can respond to touch, they can respond to taste, and they can respond to smell. Now, I don't know how sensitive their smellers are, but so very much of their actions are based on feelings. They get into a situation and it doesn't feel right around their body, and they'll wiggle and move and do whatever they do to try to change that. So we can't talk about what the worm saw. We really can't really talk about what the worm thought. We can talk about what the worm felt. Now, this little worm had been crawling along this rough pavement, occasionally probing with his nose to find an entrance to the subterranean. And having failed to find it, it just crawled on. Now, worms don't slither. They accomplish locomotion through what they call peristaltic crawling. They flood their bodies with their fluid, and then their muscles contract and elongate, and it's called peristaltic crawling. So it's just crawling along, trying to find a place where its nose will go into the ground, and not getting the feeling that it wanted to feel after so long of a journey. It just stopped. Now, whether it was coming or whether it was going, it just stopped. Worms aren't capable of rational thought, so to superimpose cognition on that order would be disingenuous. But worms, quote unquote, make decisions. They make choices. They go here, they go there, they go or they stop. And they make all those choices based on feelings, the sensation of what it could feel around this little body. And it had crawled all this way, all the way from the other side of the track. And it crawled all that way on the hot pavement, on the hot, rough, unyielding, unforgiving pavement. And it was one worm length away. It was almost home. But after all that crawling, it felt the same. It felt the same to the feeling sensors that give worms feelings. And since it had felt this way for such a long time, it may have just decided it would never feel anything different. And so it just stopped. It stopped. And it died and it dried up. The length of his little worm body from the feeling it had been hoping to find. In all fairness, you might surmise that the worm had exited the grassy area and had just embarked on the long journey to cross to the other side of the pavement. And from a worm's point of view, that would be a huge and dangerous undertaking. And having gotten just a little bit out of the grass, it had decided it was too much to feel this way for that long, and so it had just stopped. It was too hard, it was too hot, it was too difficult. And instead of pushing through it, it just quit. And I don't know which is sadder, to stop at the beginning or stopping before the finish. I don't know which is worse, but they resulted in the same thing. They result in the same result: dead and dried up jerky failure, or dead and dried up failure jerky. See, we have the option. We can choose the viewpoint we use to navigate our world. We can use only our feelings and let what we feel dictate what we do, or we can rise above the feeling and use the other senses we have to make sense of our situation and make sensible decisions. We are creatures of the earth. You're wrapped in a dirt body. Compared to the celestial, or compared to the heavenly, or compared to the spiritual, we're probably a little more than worms. We are earth worms. And because we are worms of the earth, we could have the worm's earth view, or we can decide to see beyond what we feel. We can decide to believe in what we can't see. We can decide to believe in what we don't see. And the trail you're crossing is not all there is to your world. See, there's things out there you can't see or you don't see. The feelings you are feeling is not all there is to feel, and the thing that you see is not all there is to see, and the thing that you can't see is no less real just because you cannot see it. Don't let your limited worm's eye view cause you to stop before you really begin. And don't let your limited worm's eye view cause you to quit before you find the end.
Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3Ws and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the donate here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. The mission of Heritage Christian University is simple. They aim to advance the churches of Christ by equipping servants through undergraduate and graduate programs. Heritage Christian University produces effective communicators of the gospel, focusing on evangelism and a commitment to Scripture. Heritage Christian University is accredited by the Association for Biblical Higher Education and offers the following degrees: Associate of Arts in Biblical Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Master of Arts, Master of Ministry, and Master of Divinity. Since 1968, Heritage Christian University, formerly International Bible College, has offered affordable degrees in biblical studies, allowing graduates to thrive in their ministries without the burden of loan debt after graduation. For more information about Heritage Christian University, visit www.hcu.edu. That's 3Ws and a dot, hcu.edu. Heritage Christian University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.